Hello, everyone. Welcome to On Record with the Asian Chronicle. Today, we've been joined by Dr. Subhash Kak, a renowned Indian American computer scientist and Regents Professor at the Oklahoma State University. He's also an Indic scholar. His work bridges modern science and ancient knowledge, particularly through his research and interpretations of the Rig Veda. He has made pioneering contributions to the field as diverse as quantum information, neural networks, and the history of science, earning him the Padma Shri in 2019. Born in Srinagar, Kashmir, Dr. Kak's academic journey spans prestigious institutions, including the IIT Delhi, Imperial College of London, and Bell Labs. Dr. Kak is also a prolific author, having published books on science, philosophy, and poetry. A man who wears many hats. Dr. Kak, welcome.
Thank you, Garima. Glad to be on your show.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, I will start with my first question and we'll address your book. In your book, The Age of Artificial Intelligence, you draw parallels between the transformative impact of the Industrial Revolution and the ongoing AI revolution, arguing that AI will not only redefine economies but also shape geopolitical dynamics. So today, the United States and China are leading this race, and India may be at the risk of remaining a participant at the periphery of this revolution, despite a very favorable demography and a massive digital user base. So, my question is, what do you believe are the most urgent steps India should take to avoid this while balancing and safeguarding its sovereignty and social stability? And, sir, how can India best channel its youthful energy and startup ecosystem? Keeping in mind we have an ancient philosophical tradition. So, yes, sir. What are your take on this?
Oh, well, a very interesting question. We really live in very, inflectional times. Things are changing very rapidly. The populations in many parts of the world are falling. And for example, China's population in the next 80 years is expected to be 1/4 of what it is now. Right now, it's the same as India's, but by the end of the century, a lot of scholars believe it'll be maybe in the 300 millions. So with all this going on, and India's population expected to begin to fall only in about 20 years, as you said, India has a very sweet demographic spot right now. But I think what India needs to do, although India is already the third largest economy on a PPP, purchasing power parity basis, but what India needs to do is to obtain greater agency in technology. You know, India has been happy to be a follower. Look at AI apps or apps that are available for online applications. India is nowhere in the picture. India can very easily get into it because it's not a very expensive area to get into. So I think probably what hurts India the most is the system of bureaucracy which is used. I think it's too much is left to the government to do. And governments normally are not equipped for a variety of reasons to take initiative. So I think what India needs to do, the smart people, the leaders, the elite need to sit down and see how do we make sure that the private companies can be inspired. Now, they may not want to take risk, but how could their risk be lessened so that they jump into the picture? You know, for example, AI search, AI-based search is a big thing. We have ChatGPT or Grok and Perplexity and so on. And the founder of Perplexity, who's an Indian in the US, he was in India a short while ago. And he says, why isn't India getting into it? And from a personal basis, I can tell you that AI-based search was invented by me in the 1990s. And you can look up papers on that. Why isn't India getting into it? It's not expensive at all. So there's so many other such things. And everything is favorable for India for a variety of reasons. Chinese play too much of a hardball. The US has a lot of things working against it right now. One is its educational system is pretty bad, rather surprisingly. And so it needs people from India and China to run its companies and to run its research labs and all that. So India is in a great place. So we need to seize the day, as the famous Latin slogan, Carpe Diem goes. Seize the day, do it, jump into it.
Yes, sir. Completely resonating with that. Sir, as India strengthens, we are in the process of trying to get there. Sir, um, I think in the Indian government is trying to build a foundational model. Now, a lot of resources do go into this. Sir, and understanding, the bureaucracy, red tape, a lot of issues do exist. So, what kind of maybe improvements can be brought in through the education side of things in India? Are there any suggestions that you may have in that regard?
Well, often the initiatives that are taken in Delhi is that, okay, set up a research center here or create AI centers at this IIT or that IIT. That's all very fine because the institutes are very important for developing manpower. You do need individuals with the basic skills to create the products. But that cannot take the place of actual know-how building, which is where companies get formed. So that cannot be done through the institutes, through the universities, or through government organizations. And that's where somehow um, companies, powerful companies. This is how Korea or Japan did it. They had their verticals, and so they had the resources, and they got into new products. While in India, the startups are really at the ground level. They don't have much resources, so they cannot go that much bigger. So this is a challenge. This is something, squaring the circle. How it might be done, well, I don't know. It's only, by looking at all the details of where things are going that one would know what's to be done.
All right, sir. Sir, with this, I would pivot a bit more towards India. Specifically, India is at a crossroad right now. We are strengthening ourselves internally. But when we think of geopolitics, a country has as much agency, as much say in geopolitics or, the global scheme of things as strong as it is internally. So, sir, in this context, we have been independent for just over 77 years and we are navigating quite a turbulent external environment. And so, this is something you've spoken of previously, but I just want to reiterate it for our viewers. Where, in the 19th century, we saw the great game between Britain and Russia to get a hold over India. In 21st century, likewise, we're seeing this evolve between United States and China. India is a big part of this dynamic. So, but unlike in the past, India is no longer a silent pawn in the struggle. We are self aware, we are guided by a universalist philosophy centered around Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Sir, my question now is as India enters this new great game, we can call it, how can we balance hard power with our civilizational values to influence global governance? What kind of strategic clarity and institutional reform does India need to, and what kind of mistakes, colonial era mistakes, that we should not repeat?
Well, we are often critical of what India is doing, but on the other hand, let's take the other side. Let's look at what has happened the right way in India. India, after all, has climbed to the third largest economy position. So, which means certain things are going well. Poverty alleviation has occurred on a big, big scale. There's a lot of infrastructure coming up. So, I believe the government's philosophy in the last 5, 10, 15 years, ever since the economy was freed, has been that, okay, build the infrastructure, that somehow smart people will get in and take advantage of the infrastructure and do whatever is needed to be done. And maybe that is happening to a certain extent. And India may have chosen not to build its AI apps for some strategic reasons that, okay, if we do that, there will be a pushback from China and the US. So it's okay. Let's align ourselves with American applications. And then we are a free country anyway. So maybe this is all right. And perhaps something can be said in support of that perspective as well. So, in short, maybe things are not going badly at all. India does need to reduce corruption because there is corruption at intermediate levels, as is there everywhere. Now we see all these pictures of horrific, historic corruption in the U.S. Through NGOs, and there was this lady. She had only $100 in her account, and she was given $2 billion. NGO, Stacey Abrams, the story that you may have come across. So, given all that, maybe India is not that badly off. We, self-flagellate ourselves and beat up on ourselves and say that we are doing everything badly. Maybe that's not the case, and so of course things always need to be improved, and no matter what's being done, it could be done better, and maybe that is all happening. So maybe things are all right.
So, you know, you painted a great picture. I think India is doing well. We are we are taking the right decisions, and we're trying to pivot ourselves in the right direction. So thank you so much, sir, for that insight, sir. Sir, however, when we speak of, if we think of the colonial era mistakes that we have, uh, there have been plenty, and we are recovering from that. But there's one issue that just it we don't see the end of it. Right. We have to talk about Kashmir. We have to talk about the barbaric attack that has taken place in Pahalgam. So, given your roots in Kashmir and the recent tragic event, how do you interpret the Kashmir conflict, sir? Maybe it's not a merely a political or a territorial dispute, but it shows that there are deeper civilizational and ideological struggles. Sir, how should maybe India approach this persistent threat of emerging terror outfits across the border?
Well, terror originating from Pakistan has been going on in Kashmir for a long time. Even when I was growing up, for example, there used to be incidents. This is a long time ago. So that is something one's got to factor in, because that is based fundamentally on Pakistan's raison d'etre. Its own reason for existence is India hate. It's a very tragic situation that a country is being founded on hating another country. It's not a country based on any positivist philosophy. And that's, in fact, one of the reasons why Pakistan is doing badly, because if you stew in the juices of hate, your own organs will melt in that. And that's what's happening to Pakistan. And we can only hope that Pakistan would need a self-cleansing revolution that it requires for its own good. It's not happened in the past, and sadly, its current leadership is the current general who runs Pakistan is a fundamentalist, in the mold of Ziaul Haq, which is not a very good thing at all. So I think what India has to do is to, be pragmatic, and which has been one of the undoings of India in the 90s or 80s, to hold on to unrealistic expectations. The slogans such as "Let's have peace," "Aman ki asha," and normalize everything and so on. You have to be realist. I'm a realist myself. You have to be a realist. You have to recognize what are the challenges, what are the problems, and then respond not with emotion, with reasonable calculations, and at the same time being compassionate and humane. We love everybody. All human beings are the same. That's our civilizational approach to reality. So we don't hate the Pakistanis, but clearly, and we love Pakistanis, but it's the Pakistani government and state, and perhaps we need to be hard to give Pakistanis an opportunity to reform, to give Pakistan to come out of the horrible situation it's landed itself in over the last nearly 80 years. So we've got to be very hard. And now is an opportunity. This challenge has been thrown at India, the horrific terror attack in Pahalgam. So, uh, my advice to Delhi would be as hard as you can, and no half-hearted measures. Of course, nothing hurriedly. It doesn't mean that you go and start a war or a battle on the battlefield. No, everything has got to be done with proper calculations, but uh, but not be unrealistic and not be emotional and not now say, okay, now everything is fine. We have somebody who's smiling from Robert Pindi, so we can let down our guard. We can't let that happen.
Yes, sir. Sir, when we speak of revolution, a cleansing revolution, a revolution in Pakistan, also allowing them to, reform themselves, maybe find that one common vision of what Pakistan should be like and what it should be, the principles that it should be based upon. So well, Pakistan is not just fighting one battle, right? It's also dealing with the Baloch insurgency. It's also dealing with the Pashto insurgency. So it is having problems from all sides when it comes to its neighbors. It's not just us. And sir, speaking of that, not just and coming back to India, so external forces are a threat from multiple sides, even for India. Specifically, I want to address not just Pakistan, but China, and now Turkey and China and Turkey and Pakistan are having greater cooperation. So that they try to exploit India and destabilize India. Not just that, but China also is increasing its influence all over South Asia. So, in this context, sir, how do you assess the evolving strategies of these powers and specifically India's counter strategies that it must adopt militarily or diplomatically? So, we are already seeing India, suspend the water treaty, the Indus Water Treaty. It is, I think, in Delhi, they are deliberating over what smart decisions they should be taking. But so, what is your take on this, especially given our neighbors?
Well, the whole world, from a geopolitical angle, is always a very dangerous place. You are absolutely right. Pakistan has its threats, internal threats. It doesn't have money. It's in a very bad situation. But so is China. China and America now they are at economic war, and China is afraid of India because America is using India as a counter to China. So they're also, and they have a huge army of supporters they left, the pro-China groups within the Indian polity and Indian intellectual world who support China because they don't care for anything else. It's all very emotional for them. So it is a complicated game. So right now, when the world order changes and flips, as is happening in slow time, running a big country like India, or running even a small country, is a very difficult challenge. And so we can, and it's got to be done with calm heads. And there is certainly the Chinese groups or groups within India who are inimical to India's progress. And not only that, as we've seen from recent disclosures from the US, America had been using USAID to support even terrorist groups within South Asia, Southern Asia, or in other regions of the world. Now, fortunately, and USAID had big operation within India, using different groups and funding them. But fortunately, that is sort of been wound up. And right now, the leadership in the US has a lot of elements who are supportive of India, including President Trump himself, or DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, or FBI chief Kashyap Patel, and all that stuff. So there are lots of people who have realized that India is really the natural partner to the US, and let's not create unnecessary problems for India, as had been done in the past. America had been playing both sides, and that was one way of them making sure that the countries would be pliant. They would be beholden to them. US was playing both the bad cop and the good cop. A bad cop was through NGOs. You're funding NGOs which are opposed to Indian government and who are doing unpleasant stuff, but you're also giving funds through the government. So both sides, bad cop, good cop. I think that's been exposed, which is a very good thing. And Indians have become more worldly wise, because it's always been the same case. If you go back to the Anglo-American thing, even the beginning of the 20th century, or how Germany sent Lenin to bring down Russia, the Russian Empire, the Tsar. The rulers of the world have been playing this game, fifth degree chess, and countries, babes in the wood. They thought that everything is nice. People only do what they say. That's not how the world works. They may say one thing and they may be doing many different things. But the Indian scene and the Indian media is much more sophisticated now than was the case some time ago. So I think all of that is for the good. And I believe we are quite aware. First, the most important thing is to be aware of what the threats are, and we are aware. That doesn't mean that you can't do business. We are aware of what the Chinese might want to do, or other inimical players in the world might want to do in India. And it's with having known that, we can still do business to the extent that business needs to be done. So I think India has become a much more aware and aware player in this new world game. And in many ways, India has also a very strong hand. One, we've already mentioned the demographic thing. The other is India's civilizational advantage. And why is that an advantage? Because in the AI age, as I've argued in my book, The Age of AI, there's also a lot of loss of meaning, because if you think that you are a machine like the other machines, the robots and so on, then what is the meaning of life? And you can see this in the US, 120,000 people dead of drug overdose, young people who seem to have everything going for them, but they feel that life is not worth living. And I believe, as someone who knows both science and has done, history and India's civilizational background, I believe that what India's civilization offers is the only way. India has this idea of the Atman, which is beyond the machine. And in 2023, I proved the theorem that indeed a machine can never have consciousness. And that is perfectly consistent, with what Krishna, for example, says in the Bhagavad Gita, that Atman, it's the same Atman within everybody. All of this is also doing a great deal of influence. It's very influential all across the world. People are looking, there are good people everywhere. They want answers to fundamental questions, not only geopolitically, where power equations matter, but also to what is behind all these power equations are different conceptions of what the world is like, or the world ought to be. And I think India will play an extremely oversized role. And if it hasn't already done so, it's because most Indians have been separated from their own tradition due to our colonial educational policies. But that is changing. And that's where the new media is playing an important role. Media such as your network and many other such channels. So I think people all over the world are aware of it, and you can see there's a lot of sympathy towards India, even in um, Arabian countries. You go to UAE, you go to even Saudi Arabia right now. There are people who are doing yoga. You go to all over Europe. You even go to China. Reasonable people are aware that India doesn't pose a threat. India doesn't want to be middle kingdom like China does, where everybody else pays homage to China. India says everybody is equal. Let's all be in this trip together. So I think people are aware of it. India has the demographic sweet spot. Indians are extremely successful. Go to any corner of the world, go to the biggest corporation in the US, you'll see they're being led by Indians. You go to the universities in the West, some of the people at the very top are Indians. So everywhere, and people love them. I can tell you, Americans love Indians just because, they're good people and they're not sectarian. They're not saying do it only for us or do it for my community. No, they're saying, as you said, samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. That's what really Indian purpose is, and I think that's the way it should be for everybody.
Yes, sir. So clearly we have done something right. Right. So India, I mean, the kind of downpour of support from all the countries, it's quite unprecedented. It's not the same way as it was before, when India was suffering and everyone would downplay what was going on with respect to border aggressions or terrorist attacks, all of it. So clearly we have done something right, and that shows in the goodwill that India has earned, and that makes us diplomatically, it keeps us in a sweet spot. Thank you, sir. Also, sir, one question that I have with regards to all of this is, when it comes to, you spoke quite a bit about the US and China, the tariff war, the trade war. Sir, US is being quite aggressive when it comes to the trade war. And while now Donald Trump has started being, he's mediating this path a little bit more right now. Sir, how do you see India emerging out of this? India and US also have deep ties when it comes, not just trade ties, but also when it comes to diaspora and a lot of other aspects where we're deeply interconnected. So how do you see India emerging out of this, where once, we see the end of how it will look like after the trade war?
Yeah, this trade war is really for America's own survival.
Yes.
America literally produces nothing, and China produces everything. America has the money, China has the products. America has the money for historical reasons. So America needs India. They are already shifting the production of many things, and China would react through its agents within the US, within India. For example, as a lot of reasonable people say that the copper factory in Tamil Nadu was shut down by leftist groups because China didn't want a copper factory to come up in India. So there would be all of that, but I think in many ways America feels that India is the answer. They're triangulating. You have US, China, and India, and America and Europe, of course, is also a big player. But US is a kind of a vassal to America, and it's become so socialistic. It doesn't have too much of a freedom to evolve and so on, and it has its own immigrant problem and social problems. So India is more free, and while India has also adopted a lot of woke policies, but it's not being done because everything in India is done in a half-hearted way. It's not seeped into the very heart of India's being. So a lot of people think that India, for all of these reasons, even for its negative reasons or what has not happened, offers a ground where a lot of good stuff can happen. And America and India are natural partners. And in spite of whatever has gone wrong with America, America continues to be the richest country. And there's never been a society as rich as America is right now. It's unbelievable. You can't imagine that people pay as much as $50 The rich people in America, I can tell you from personal experience, having researched it, they pay as much as $50,000 per night for a room in in a suite in one of the expensive hotels. So America is extremely rich, and American can also bounce back. So this tariff war gives an opportunity to America also to clean its own act, and it is happening in many different ways. So I see it as a net positive um, for India and for America. They need each other, and the rest of the world also needs both of us, because I see India as a good player, good actor, and India even wishes Pakistan good, but Pakistan must reform itself. It's like we can't do it for them. Pakistan has to overthrow and get rid of its hate ideology. That's not good for itself, and that's not good for its next generations. So we must do whatever can be done to force this change in Pakistan. So to conclude, I think India is doing things well. It's doing them in a deliberate, slow manner, thinking through, and I think that will only give us enough time to also see how do we use this goodwill which exists, as you pointed out, exists all over the world for India in this particular moment. How can be harnessed to push events in this new world great game in a direction which helps India and helps greater India, because after all of southern Asia was a part of India for millennia, all of Southeast Asia, all the way to Arabia. So to build those links, and leaders in UAE also recognize that they do recognize that India offers a vision which is complementary to the material progress of Americas, and they need that, because some people think that if you only focus on the material progress as America has done, that's also a very dangerous path, from a spiritual perspective. And so we are at the right spot right now.
Yes, sir. I think there's a huge discourse that may say that treading with caution may not be the best way, but that is what has ensured that we are positioned in the right exact spot that we should be in. So, with this, I just have one. This is our final question. So, you've written a lot about knowledge and self-organization. There's a lot of movements now coming out of India, and so how do you think India's science and technology ecosystem, particularly in the areas of AI, quantum computing, advanced research, and specifically because our neighbor China has gone leaps and bounds in these areas of technology. So, how do you think India can evolve to become truly world leading rather than depending on external innovation? Just a broad picture.
I think the weakest spot in India is the higher education sector. India's universities, and we have some good universities like IISc and many of the IITs and some of the other older universities, but still we're not in the top 100 in any of the fields. A small city state like Singapore has two universities in the top 20 in the world. China has maybe 20 or 30 in the top 100. India has none. Maybe India has one or two in the top 200. So, very hard look needs to be given to the higher education sector. It needs to be. We need some visionary thinkers and see how do we do it the way we've been doing it in a bureaucratic way hasn't worked out. Maybe we should follow the example of any successful model. If the Chinese have done it, how did they do it? If the Singaporeans have done it, how did they do it? So let's copy them. We don't necessarily have to do things our own way just because we can then say we are doing it our own way. Let's copy whatever is good wherever it is. So I think that is the challenge. Because what happens in India is often, okay, you then, from the UGC or from Ministry of Education, they say, okay, let's give 5 new positions to this IIT in this area, that area. That doesn't cut it. You have to think it through in a fundamental way, and also make sure, find out how can you get the private sector involved in a bigger way, not just for the sake of creating these physical infrastructures because the real estate value of that land goes up. A lot of the private educational sectors have gotten into it for that reason. I think now is the time, and I hope that the government of India is listening. Maybe India should have a program to become the world center for higher education, because India can deliver higher education using technology at a cost which is much less than in America. You see, in America right now, if you go to, we want to do masters or PhD or even undergraduate, it can cost you up to $50,000-$60,000 a year, which is half a crore a year. And it's all useless, really, because most of that education is stories. You know, most education is storytelling, and those stories are also freely available on the internet. So why can't India get into it and become a education center for the entire world, as it used to be during the Nalanda and the Takshashila period? So I think that's what's required. And do it, maybe, we're not competing with everybody else. Do it in a fashion, you deliver it better. And Indians are great teachers. Even in America, some of the greatest teachers are Indians. Great teachers, you do it, but you will need fundamental reform. You'll have to go beyond how it's being done right now. How, I don't know. I don't have the answer, but something needs to be done.
Yes, sir. Sir, of course, we've historically, civilizationally, we've had Nalanda and uh, create coming up to and creating a becoming a world center of higher education should not be very difficult. We should be able to, we should maybe have a plan, like a policy to ensure how this materializes. Thank you so much, sir. Given your background in academics, maybe India can learn a lot from you also to how we take the next steps in this direction. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining us and imparting us with your insights on what India can be like. Grateful to have you, and stay tuned for more such content and analysis at the Asian Chronicle.